Yeah. So she has done this same workshop in different cities of India, and it had helped a lot of youngsters. Now she, as she mentioned, Waterloo, and you're going to
Brampton.
Muskoka as well, right?
I'll be going to Montreal and Mississauga.
Montreal and Mississauga. So she'll be doing this workshop in different area. Um, I'm sorry for this thing. We are just taking some time to connect over here.
Yeah,
But let me tell you a little more about Mother. So,
I'll introduce myself, Rishi.
okay,
That's okay.
okay.
I'll just see disconnected and then
You can just report yourself now.
okay.
You can get engaged people.
Yeah. Hi, Krishna. Rishi, just one more request. Okay. So would you like to please come on the chairs here? Because it's going to be engaging, so you won't feel bored. Don't worry. Yeah, please come. I think even the people sitting there, please come. Please feel free to come here and sit in the front. This is not needed, I think. Just it's good, yeah. Yeah, through just one sec. This is the PPT financial literacy. Yeah, we'll just put it on slideshow mode and F5. Yeah, we need to go to the first slide. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Can I get it here so that I can move it? Maybe we can move this a bit closer. Okay. Girls, Matajis, can y'all please come here? Like those at the back, please feel free to come in the front. Okay. Hey, Krishna. I think that's too loud. Is this better? Like, is it audible for everyone? Okay, great. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so Proshi, thank you so much for this opportunity, and I promise it's not going to be boring, and I'm sure it's going to be something that will be useful for all of you. So, just a brief about myself. I am Premeshwari Padmavati Devidasi. My legal name obviously is Padmavati Udecha, and I'm a All India Top 10 rank holder in the Chartered Accountancy exams, which, you know, I think the people from Indian background know it's like one of the toughest exams in India. And after that, I have over 10 years of experience working in corporates, in, you know, equity research, financial analyst roles, etc. And then I also like teaching. So I thought that, you know, I should be doing something wherein we benefit youngsters rather than, you know, just because we do see that, like, you know, for example, there are so many people, they do very well in their career, like, you know, they're very good in their profession. But when it comes to money, because it's never taught in schools, they tend to learn by making mistakes. They learn, you know, they tend to learn by their own experiences. And as a result, sometimes these mistakes prove to be very costly. Like, you know, they might almost get to close to bankruptcy, or they might invest in something and lose a big chunk of money. So we hear these stories quite often. So what we're going to try to do today in the workshop is just to learn a few basic concepts of money so that we don't commit these same mistakes as, you know, we keep growing in our profession. So when we talk about financial literacy, I would just like to maybe, you know, hear from the audience, like, what do you understand when you hear about this term? So anyone, like, you know, you can just maybe volunteer. Anyone wants to share? Yeah.
Personally talking, I think how to invest your money in a nice thing, in a nice place, and how to keep saving money instead of using it on random things which I
Mm-hmm.
never, which I never gonna use.
Right. Yeah. So basically, like learning the art of managing money, right? Because we all have it. It's just like, you know, how we take care of our health or how we take care of our family and, you know, near and dear ones. Something like that. Krishna has given us his own resource, like, you know, Lakshmi Devi. She is Krishna's servant, and we have Krishna's resource. So it's very important that, you know, we just don't remain clueless. Rather, we actually try to do something about it. So these are like some of the things which come in under the term financial literacy. Like how do you manage your income, expenses, how do you save, how do you invest? What about debt? Like, sometimes people are paranoid. They just feel that, all debt is bad. We should never borrow money. But then that's not the case. There are so many wealthy people who do leverage. They take debt and, that's how they actually grow their own wealth. So I'll come to that example a bit later. But I just wanted to, share this. Now, why is this really important? So we need to remember that, we are living in a world which is so uncertain. Like, anytime AI is replacing jobs, so we hear people, they lose jobs randomly. Or, like, for example, the company goes for a corporate restructuring and then they are laid off. Similarly, sometimes people have irregular incomes as well as irregular expenses. So until and unless we are really planning our finances, what really happens is that, sometimes we tend to run out of money, like we have some important event or we have something important, we want to spend money for it, but we don't have it. And sometimes we might just make impulsive decisions. So we need to really understand what it is so that we'll get confidence and full control over money. Okay, here is an example. How many of you feel that a person who is earning more is going to be a wealthy person? Anyone? So the question is, like, how many of you feel that a person who is earning more is a wealthy person? I mean, it's not related to the example. You can just answer what comes to your mind. Sorry? Not necessarily, yeah. So we're just going to look at an example. So, this is like a typical doctor versus nurse example. So we have a doctor who obviously is earning much higher. But if you look at his expenses, he is like, spending every single thing because he wants to maintain the lifestyle of a doctor. So he has a big home loan EMI, a car EMI, and credit card bills, children's fees, etc. So at the end of the day, he has done very poor financial planning. And as a result, you're seeing that he has no savings, nothing for emergency. On the other hand, there's a nurse. Now, she's earning like just 1/3 of what the doctor is earning, but she's someone who is financially smart. If you look at her breakup, not only is she spending for what she really needs to, but at the same time, she has some savings, she has some emergency fund. So therefore, we need to understand like how we can manage what we have in a better way so that, see, it's not necessary that you really need a very high income in order to, get or basically be financially healthy. Okay, this is a small assessment. I think maybe I can, I don't know, people can just say one by one if you all want to answer. Or you can just, do it for yourself. Just rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 5. And that can be useful. Anyone wants to volunteer to just read it out? No? Okay, that's okay. It's just like, you can just take a pick and then do it later. So here are some key financial concepts. As we all know, Prashi, do we want to stop this session because I think they're not finding it interesting? That's okay? Okay. Okay. No, otherwise if they're not interested, it's fine. Yeah. Okay, I'll just keep it very brief then. Sometimes we all own properties or we all have certain possessions. So we need to understand what is really an asset for us and what are liabilities. So in very simple terms, we say that good assets are those things that are owned by us which can help us earn money or grow money, right? Like for example, if there's a doctor, now if he buys a clinic, now that is a very good asset for him because he's going to get patients, he's going to get footfalls, and he's going to get income from that. However, if suppose I just buy a luxury car, now that's not an asset for me because the value of that car keeps going down, and also I have to keep spending on maintenance, repairs, etc. So unless, okay, I'm not talking about car insurance and all those things, we'll come to that later, but in general, like just, you just buy a car and you don't take anything, then it's more of a headache for you rather than an asset. So then coming to the next thing, that is liabilities. Why we have to understand what is an asset and what is a liability for ourselves is because we want to understand something called as net worth. So net worth is like the financial health of a person. If you want to see like how healthy you are in terms of your finances, then you can just track you can just track your net worth. How is it shaping year after year? Like sometimes people buy homes by taking home loans, right? Mortgage loans, etc. Now, if your net worth is getting, deteriorated because of getting that asset and getting that loan, then it's not a very wise financial decision, because we don't want to end up in a situation wherein we have huge liabilities, and unfortunately if we get laid out by the company, then we would be struggling to meet our debt obligations. So these are some of the key financial concepts which every person should keep in mind when he is thinking about managing his finances. And then coming to the most interesting part, which is good versus bad debt. I just mentioned that sometimes people are a bit paranoid. They feel that, uh, we should just not take debt, but that's not always the case. As I said, some wealthy people, they become wealthy because they take debt within their capacity and in order to increase their income. So that is like how, Srila Prabhupada says that if you have a knife in itself is not bad. A doctor or a surgeon can use it for saving someone's life, whereas a murderer can actually use it for killing someone. So debt is like that knife, you can either use it to increase your income, increase your assets, or you can end up in a debt trap and you can just ruin yourself. So this is another example. And I just mentioned, like, for example, if a doctor, he takes a loan to set up a new clinic, then he has to ensure that the business that like the revenues that he generates from the clinic is sufficient to cover his debt obligations. So then in that case, he will actually, we can actually classify this as good debt. But on the other hand, suppose I want to, just to show off or, just to maintain my lifestyle, if I take up a debt to buy some luxury product, then that's not going to help me, because eventually what will happen, I'll keep paying money, I'll keep paying interest, and at the end of the day, the car or, the luxury product that I have bought, the value of that will keep decreasing. It like, for example, if you buy a car today, after 10 years, I don't know, like you all know better that scrap value is virtually zero, right? So we need to keep these things in mind while we are managing our finances. Okay. Now, typically, how many of you have faced a situation that, you get some income, and when you sit at the year end, you feel that where did all my money vanish? Like I have nothing left with me, right? Like sometimes there are people who have a very good paycheck, but still at the end of the year, they are like, where did all of that vanish? So we need to remember that we need to do something called as budgeting. Now, why is this budgeting so important? It is because you will tell the money where to go rather than wonder where did the money all go. So therefore, there's something called as personal finance budgeting. So at the beginning of the year itself, you can get, because you obviously have an estimate of what are your expenses, what is the income that you're going to get, and you also will keep in mind some emergencies that may come, right? Like health emergencies can come, or sometimes, as I said, unfortunate events like your job just going off. Some things like that can always happen. So we need to be very important. We need to make a budget so that we have full control over our finances. It's just like, like a sadhana. We do have a sadhana tracker, right? That how, like whether we are waking up every day, we are attending the morning program, are we reading Srila Prabhupada's books, are we, chanting our 16 rounds. So just like that, if we have a budget, if we have a standard set at the beginning of the year, then it's easier to keep tracking it and ensure that we are not spending more than what is within our means. Otherwise, it's so easy, you just see a supermarket sale, and we get into the impulsive buying decision. So then, ideally, what should be the breakup between various things that we want. Like, now, okay, this is purely based on what personal finance experts say, right? 50% or so should be allocated towards your needs. Now, needs, basically, like, food, clothing, shelter, all that falls in your needs, which you just cannot avoid. Then comes wants, like we all have some desires, we all want some comforts, we all want some luxuries. It can be different for different people, but we do all have that. So 30% or so can be allocated to that. Now, when we say that, we do this breakup, it doesn't mean that you have to say no for your desire or want or, dream. You just have to see that if it doesn't fit in the budget for this month or this year, you can just postpone it a bit so that things will fall in your budget. At the same time, see, like if you see the next part, 20% is what you're going to save for a goal in the future. So if I have a desire today which doesn't fall in my 50 or 30, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to save every month and ensure that at some stage I can meet that financial goal. The goal can be different for different people. For some, it could be, planning for their retirements. For some, it could be maybe children's education. For some, it could be a wedding, like, a dream wedding. They want to have a lavish wedding. For some, it could be like, doing some charity. It could be anything. But when it comes to personal finance management, this is the breakup that is ideally suggested by personal finance experts across the world. Okay, I want to ask this question. How many of you spend first when you get your paycheck? Or how many of you actually first think, okay, let me invest or save something and then I'll spend the rest? Spend first. Yeah. So, this is like the most common mistake that mostly all the youngsters, they do. But if you talk to, let's say, elderly people, like maybe parents, grandparents, they are always the ones who will, who would have gradually migrated from the first quadrant to the second quadrant. They are the ones who know that our wants are unlimited. No matter how much we try to satisfy it, it will never be satisfied. So therefore, at every stage, let us first save our money, and then what remains, from that we can actually plan our expenses. So out of 50, 30, 20, first priority is on the 20%, wherein we are looking to save our money. And then the remaining, we can spend as we like, needs, wants, charity, whatever we want to do. And the best part is you automate the savings. Because if it is something, like we call it discretionary, if it's left up to me, it will never happen because it's so easy. Like with digital payments these days, you keep scanning. Like, here we have the Interact transfer. You just keep doing it and, money is so easy to go out, you won't even keep a track. Whereas when you're like, there are some research surveys that have been conducted wherein people say that if I have to actually spend cash, I wouldn't spend so much as I'm spending with digital money. So therefore, let us also automate our savings. Let us also use the digital setup or the digital technology in order to save. So that once you do it, you at least are secure that I have some emergency fund for me. I have some savings for the future. Now, okay, I'll come to the last part, which is emergency fund first, and then I'll cover about inflation. See, what happens is, as I said, we are in a world of uncertainty. Like if suppose we were in, let's say Feb of 2020, who would have imagined that COVID would happen? And there would be lockdowns and there would be like such a big health emergency, also an economic emergency because people lost their jobs, they were forced to stay home. And in most countries, even the governments couldn't help people, so people were just stranded. So therefore, we always need to remember that we should have an emergency fund for ourselves. For example, Krishna forbid, if something happens, then at least the next 3 to 6 months of expenses are covered so that we don't have the financial stress because of that unfortunate event. Typically what happens, it could be anything, but those developments itself are so stressful. And if at that time you don't even have the requisite finances, then that adds up to the stress because we are still not transcendental fully. So we need to be, we need to accept our levels and we need to ensure that we have an emergency fund, at least which covers the next 3 to 6 months of our expenses. Now coming to the point of savings. See, we also need to remember there's something called as inflation. What happens is that today, if I'm using $100,000 to buy a certain thing, after 10 years, I will not get the same quantity of goods using the same money because the value of money keeps depreciating every year. So therefore, if you need to see what are you spending on and what is the inflation rate for those specific commodities. See, we cannot look at the headline inflation rate which is declared by the government because we may not be spending on everything that's there. Like for example, when the government looks at inflation, they'll be looking for inflation of various things like which we as devotees don't even use. Sorry. So for us, we need to look at the relevant inflation. Right? For example, if we are staying in rented accommodation, then what is the housing rent inflation? What is the inflation with gadgets? What is the inflation with food, etc.? And we need to take that into account. Otherwise, and then if you're choosing an investment option which gives you a return of less than the inflation rate, then you're just losing money in real terms. You might see nominally it's increasing, like your 100,000 of savings has become say 200,000. But if today you can buy a certain amount of goods with 100,000, but after 10 years, even with $200,000, you're not able to buy the same quantity of goods, then the real value of money has eroded. So this is something which we all need to keep in mind. Now, where to invest? There are so many options. Now, there are two important rules over here. First rule is we should never put all the eggs in one basket. Now, I know we don't deal with eggs, but at least we know the property of eggs, right? If you put it, if it falls, it cracks up and it's lost. So if you put all the eggs in one basket, and if the basket falls by mistake, that means everything is gone. So in this world of uncertainty, suppose you put all your savings into stocks and the stock market collapses, right? Like it has happened. I don't know if you all have ever tracked, but in Japan this happened, right? Almost for the past 30 years, stock markets have still not reached the levels where they were 30 years back. So, the markets collapsed, and even after 30 years, they have a very low inflation rate. It's 2%. But still, the their stock markets have not reached those levels. So people have to be very cautious, right? Also, we have to be very, very careful that we don't enter into the gambling aspects of stocks. We have to be, very careful because if we do that, then it's violating our regulative principles, which as devotees, again, we don't want to do. Similarly, other things like bonds. Sometimes, we invest in the bond of a company goes bankrupt. So all the money is gone. So we need to be very careful. We need to diversify into various aspects. Also, we need to invest knowing our risk appetite. So when we are young, we can take some riskier investments. But when we are getting gradually older, right, then we actually shift to more safe investments because we don't want to, lose the hard-earned money at an older stage. Now, why is this important? Because see, in Shastras it said dharma, artha, kama and moksha. So, till we actually attain bhakti, which comes, after the 4 stages, we need to ensure that we are balancing everything. Because we are not at the level of, say, Madhvendra Puri, that whatever comes, we'll live by that accord, right? We all have our needs, we all have our desires. We are not like, okay, Krishna, today you don't give me prasadam, that's fine, I'm going to live without it. So therefore, we are talking about planning everything so that stress is less. We'll do we do our karma and then we leave it to Krishna that, if still something happens, then we accept it as Krishna's plans and, we move forward. But at least we have to be prudent. We cannot be stupid. Like, for example, if, suppose I know I am diabetic. I'm not, but I'm just saying example that suppose I'm diabetic. I will not just go and keep eating sugar, right? So therefore, even with your own finances, please be very careful, because it is something that Krishna has given us. Yeah, it is Krishna's energy. Okay. Now, sometimes people say that, right now we are very young and we want to like enjoy life. So we don't want to talk about investments, savings, etc. But it's very important that once you start investing early, that really makes a big difference. Now, I know these numbers are in rupees, but just to understand the calculation part, like there are three people, someone who started investing at the age of 30, 40, and 50. You see the big difference that happens by the time they reach their retirement age. So therefore, it is important that we all start investing. Even if it is small, it is fine. Consistency is what matters. We need to start saving, we need to start investing more from an earlier age. Coming to one of the most important aspects, as I was saying, uh, world is so uncertain. Anything can happen at any time, and we may do our planning, we may invest, but still, sometimes some unforeseen circumstances can outsmart all our plans. So therefore, we have a safety net. Now, typically what happens, there's a lot of mis-selling that happens in the insurance industry. They try to bundle up investment as well as the protection aspect. So what happens is you pay a big price, but you don't get the returns. Now, I'm not going to, I'm not here to actually tell you which insurance you should opt or which one you should not opt. This is something which you need to actually sit with maybe a financial advisor or do your own research and you can choose. But the concept that I want, youngsters to understand is that don't mix the protection aspect and the investment aspect. Try to buy insurance only to get the protection cover, because that you will get it for a lower cost. So your return or the cost that you're paying per unit of cover, that's going to be minimized. So that can give you a good deal. So that is again very important. Are there any questions? Yes, Prabhuji. The buy term insurance? Okay. So, these are some concepts prevalent in India, wherein what they do is they actually mix up investment and insurance. So ULIPs are something like unit-linked insurance plans. So, for example, if you're paying a premium for insurance, the amount that you will get if the uncertain event happens, like for example, if someone dies, or like if it's a life insurance, or any other insurance, the amount that you will get is linked to, let's say, the stock market. So if the stock market goes up, then you get a higher amount, if that unfortunate event happens. But if the markets don't give those kind of returns, then you'll get a lower amount. So it's a mixture of insurance as well as investment. But what happens in that case is that you end up paying much more because, there's a lucrative deal that's given that is getting linked to the markets. But say, when the unfortunate event actually happens, the markets have actually collapsed or crashed, then in that case, that insurance may not benefit you as much as it should have benefited. Previous slide?
The one before this, please.
Okay.
So, yes, so we should kind of diversify investments.
Right.
What if you have little money in the first place to invest and you cannot split it into all this? So which category should we pick one to begin? Also,
So, yeah.
sorry, no, I'm saying sometimes when we use these apps and whatnot to invest, they also have this minimum amount that you have to, and that can be sometimes huge too.
Huge,
So
right. So as I was saying that, you have to also look at your risk appetite. So, like for example, people when they start early, when they are young, they usually have a high risk appetite because the responsibility is lower. Right? So in that case, what is usually suggested that you can opt for some of the riskier options like mutual funds or direct stock investments, and there typically the ticket size is very low, right? As compared to, let's say, maybe real estate. Real estate is now, again, financial products are evolving. So there are something called as real estate investment trusts. It's basically like a mutual fund wherein, they pool money from different people and then they invest in real estate properties, and whatever income, like, rental income or appreciation that they get, they divide it amongst all the people. It is, I mean, the ticket size is still higher than a regular stock or mutual fund, but it is lower than the traditional real estate as an investment option. So then again, like things are evolving. So you can do your homework, because here also there are a lot of frauds and scams. So we need to actually protect ourselves that, we are not getting missold. Always, when it comes to finance, have some trusted financial advisor, seek their help, and then do it, because they will at least, protect you from getting scammed in that way. Did you have one more question? No, that's it. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, now this is again, linked to the investment part which we were discussing. See, typically, people when we talk about retirement, they tell of a age that, when we achieve so and so age, we want to retire. Now, it's no longer 60. Sometimes, people say we want to retire much earlier, like 30, 35, 40. But what we need to remember is retirement is not really an age, it's a number. The number means the corpus that you have actually accumulated for yourself, so that when you retire, you do get the benefits. Now, I understand in Western countries, your government also does cover up a lot of expenses when you retire. But if you want to retire before the government covers for you, or if you want to retire, like let's say you want to leave the country and you want to retire somewhere else, or basically any situation or any circumstance wherein you don't fall in the government protection. So this concept is important for those people, that you need to ensure that you just, like, we all know that life expectancy is typically, around 75, 80 these days on an average. So from the time you really want to retire, you can just calculate, like, what are the expenses. Again, please do take inflation into account, because, without that, you might save up, say, a $1 million or $2 million, and then you just realize that this is no more sufficient. So whenever the calculations are being done, please do take inflation into account, and ensure that you have a sufficient corpus which can keep giving you the requisite income. Now, see, retirement is also not the age, it's not a time where, you just want to blow off money. You're going to obviously live a very conscious life that time. So you can factor in all these things. Like some things will be very important for, say, him. It may not be as important for you. So you can, also consider those lifestyle modifications. So there's no thumb rule, like as we say. It's not like science, like a scientific formula that, if you mix hydrogen and oxygen, you get H2O, that is water. It's not like that. You really have to customize it for every person, and you have to come up. But these are, like the foundational principles that we are talking here. This is just a template, like, as I was saying, you factor in inflation, and then you just do the calculations. I'm not getting into it. Maybe I can share the PowerPoint if people, if anyone wants, and then you can go to the case study. And also, we need to be very conscious of taxation, because, I know in countries like Canada, it's a very huge amount. So we need to understand that we do get benefits, but also, like, sometimes people, they have a tendency to go and evade taxes by, opting for some means and here and there. But we need not do that. There's something called as tax planning. You can, again, like, it's different in different countries. But what you can actually do is you can get in touch with a tax consultant who can actually guide you that, why don't you plan your expenses in such a way that you do get some deductions. And as a result, you are able to minimize your tax liability, which you have to give to the government, while also getting some benefit. Again, I'm not getting into the nitty-gritties, because as I said, it's different in different areas. Many of you are here in Canada today. Maybe you all might go to the US. The taxation structure there is quite different. So you have to really see in the geography where you are located. And yeah, that's it. I think we are to the end of the workshop, the demo workshop that we have. But if someone wants to know more about these concepts, if you have youngsters, like younger siblings, and you want to teach them, then we have, like, Nitai has a financial literacy program wherein we cover all these concepts in much more detail. And if anyone would like to join, they can go for it. So yeah, that's it from my side.
Mother, I have a question.
Yes, Pravji.
So how can we join this course first of all?
Yeah, so I'll just come to this. So we have a website, neetai.com, wherein we have four different batches or modules that go on, because we cannot teach the same thing to a 6-year-old kid what we would probably want to teach young adults like y'all. And if you go on the website, currently you know the way the course structure is, there are 10 live Zoom sessions for every candidate who enrolls, and we provide free recordings, like all the recordings are provided to them. And also we give free lifetime access to the website to everyone who enrolls. Because the website is still evolving, we have certain videos, we have certain workbooks, and we have certain quizzes. So we have some resources on the website, and we are adding a lot more. So we want to give this, benefit to all the people who are enrolling now, like an early bird initiative, that you all will get free lifetime access to all the resources that keep getting added on the website. And the course price is $399, but especially for ISKCON people or ISKCON congregation, we have a 75% discount promo code. So anyone who uses that promo code and enrolls on the website, they can get it at a 75% discount. You can, if you want, you can note it. You can take a pic. And yeah, lastly, I think we don't want to do anything just for ourselves. When we talk about finance, we also talk about giving back to the society, philanthropy. So as Prabhuji said, I have come from Mayapur. So for me, in this venture, every subscription or every enrollment that we get, we are straight away giving 10% to the Mayapur Community Hospital. So for those of you who have, who know about Mayapur, uh, it is, like, I would say, the birthplace of our Sankirtan movement, but it's also a rural village in India where medical facilities are not that great. And many of the senior devotees, many of senior Srila Prabhupada disciples, they have expressed this desire on and off that, we want to have a multi-specialty hospital in Mayapur, so that all our senior devotees, all the Dhamvasis, they can get those benefits. And this hospital also, they provide free services, they provide subsidized services. So they are setting up a new 100-bed multi-specialty hospital, and we also want to support them. So that's what we have committed, that for every subscription that we get or every enrollment that we get, 10% of the revenue will directly go to the Mayapur hospital. Any other questions? Sorry, I didn't ask this side. Okay.
So Mother, you were talking about the gambling aspect of stocks.
Right.
Can you expand more on that? Like, what is gambling and what is not gambling?
Right. Yeah, that's a very good question. So if you have heard anything called as derivatives, DERA. Yeah, derivatives. So derivatives are more or less close to the gambling aspect, right? So how do we really differentiate? Because again, as I said, things are evolving. So in the course we cover it in detail, like what are the various aspects. But in short, what happens is in derivatives, the value is derived on the basis of some underlying stock, and and then with AI, like technology, there's a lot of manipulation that happens in the stock prices. So what you are actually using, like derivative, if you're investing in a derivative instrument, there is no real thing at the back, just like cryptocurrency or bitcoins. It's all, I would say, all in the air only in that way. So as a result, you're just speculating or you're just betting on something which the outcome is not really dependent on anything happening. See, if you're investing in a company, the company is going to do business, and when the company makes profit, they'll give you a share of that profit. So the only thing that we can actually do is long-term investing. It's like, having your own business. You have invested money in the business. If the business grows, you keep getting your money. But if, you are saying, okay, today I buy a derivative, I buy a stock, and then tomorrow it will go up, I'll sell it off. So this is all like speculation or gambling. Yes.
I get it, but it's also the AI model kind of just studies the past impressions, right? So it's trying to find a pattern. So it's not really
See, so yeah, I get your I get your question. So
So
you
for
know,
example, I'm sorry, I'm just going to expand on that in very brief. So if we go to like a place where actually people are gambling, they just,
can you hold it close?
oh sorry. So people, if there's something in a box, like a few balls, and if people bet like, you know, this golden ball will come out and they put money on it, that is gambling. But if I have studied a few statistics about which colored balls have come out, and on the basis of that, that I say that this is more likely to come out, is that still gambling? That is probability.
Right. That's a very good question. So, see, what happens in gambling is the outcome is not really dependent on some concrete action that's happening, right? For example, which color ball will come out, you can, I mean, you can have some probability, you can have some calculation, but in and itself, that act of the ball coming out of a particular color, that's not really dependent on any concrete action, right? So therefore, it becomes, basically it's a gray area. And therefore, you know, senior devotees, like usually they say that we should avoid this aspect because it's like gambling. Similarly with stocks, there's something called as technical analysis. So what they do is they study the past history of, you know, stock price movements, and they cover a lot of things. But because this is all again done through technology, it's very easy to manipulate all of that. As I said, I come from a background of equity research. So, you know, we come across various case studies. Like, you know, I mean, not everything comes out in the public as a financial scandal, right? But we come across so many case studies where, you know, people actually rig the whole system. Like, okay, let me just get into a few technical terms. Like when you study technical analysis, there are some patterns, like, you know, they're called as, like Japanese terms like marubozu, etc. These all indicate that the stock price will go up. So, you know, people who actually study these patterns, and if they see that, they want to invest. But right now, because of technology and algorithms, it's rigged in such a manner that they can actually artificially show these patterns. And the moment people actually put their money, and then, you know, they can just reverse the whole thing. So it's always possible, and it's actually happening in real world. And again, the thing is that, you know, the stock price movements on a daily basis, it's not again backed by concrete action. See, a company which is doing business, like for example Tesla, right? It is making electric cars. It is putting in a lot of efforts, and you know, then it's going to grow. Similarly, Apple, they make iPhones, they sell it. There's so much effort that goes into the whole process. But when will you know what are the results of those efforts? It is only at the end of the financial year when they're going to declare their profits. I mean, they do declare on a quarterly basis, but you know, you'll only get a full picture at the year end. So it's like a business. It's just like, you know, you don't have the time and energy or the resources to start up a business at the scale of Apple. So you have, you know, invested in their business. So that's the only thing which falls under long-term investing, which can be done. But anything which is short-term, like, you know, where you're just betting on stock price movements, that is a very gray. It's a gray area, basically. Yeah.
Thank you,
Okay.
Brahma.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mother. I think it was really helpful.
Thank you.
My question is regarding that chart you showed us,
Sorry, the chat.
the
Which
chart for savings, need 30% for savings,
Right,
50
right,
for
right.
need,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and then last 30 for the
Last 20
wish.
for goals. Yeah.
Yes. My question is, again, it's so easy to just scroll on Amazon, or there are a lot of apps in Canada,
Correct.
Tamu or Alibaba or
Right.
some other app. You're just scrolling and, oh, I like this thing.
Exactly.
And I like this thing.
Right.
So as youngsters, and it, Prabhupada has mentioned that it's our actually eternal thing to be happy or to enjoy. So we cannot stop enjoying, but how do we make sure that at the same time we are saving a lot of amount of money? So
Yeah. So that's why I was saying, right, that you need to do two things. One, you need to automate your savings. So anyone who gets income, like whatever income it can be, the moment the income comes, first the investing should happen, and then, you know, what is left, you just plan as to how you will spend it, where you will spend it. So that is the first thing. Automate all the savings right on the day you get your paycheck. Like for, I mean, whatever could be the income, it could be a paycheck, it could, you know, be something else. But whenever you get income, that's the first thing, automate the savings on the same day. Second aspect is always have some financial plan and have a budget and keep tracking it. right? Because like let's say for example, suppose someone gets $100,000 and they're completely clueless where they're going to spend it. Then they go here, oh there's a sale, Amazon, okay, I'll buy this. They'll go somewhere else, they'll buy it. So then that propels a lot of impulsive decisions. But on the other hand, if you have a plan that these are my bare minimum expenses and I have to pay, like for example, my rent, electricity, utilities, whatever, like whatever could be the bare minimum expenses, uh, then I want, like let's say there's a yatra going somewhere. I mean, I don't know from here how often people go to India, but let's say someone wants to go to Mayapur, Vrindavan, Jagannath Puri. So okay, like like I don't know when it happens here, but let's say sometimes Kartik people go to Vrindavan. So there are a group of devotees going from the temple to Vrindavan during Kartik. Now this from January, right? So you can actually start saving from that month itself. And when we have a goal, like a financial goal that we want to save so and so amount for that particular day, then we will avoid impulsive actions, right? And then there are a lot of tools, Prabhuji, like there are a lot of apps wherein you can monitor your expenses, monitor your budget on a weekly or a monthly basis. So every month, if you have overshooted the budget that you had set, it will pop up red alarms. So that will also a matter of financial discipline. It's a habit. The more we start practicing it, the more it gets deeper into our roots. Um, Typically, like all our adults, like all our elders, parents, grandparents, they have it very deep rooted in their, I would say in the blood itself, to save, be very cautious. Like even, while spending, for example, if we want to go from here to say the Union bus stop, now there are various ways to go there probably, right? We can take a cab, we can probably just take a bus, we can walk a bit, take a bus. There are like various options. Now for us as youngsters, like or many youngsters, they will go with what is most convenient for them, right? But if you look at the older generation, people with gray hair, as I say, they will actually be very prudent. They'll go for the most economical option. So these are some habits which we have not really inculcated because we want everything quick, we want everything instantly. But gradually, as we learn about these things, we start practicing, we start inculcating these habits, then we can overcome. It's all about financial discipline, just like discipline. Like if I ask you, Prabhuji, that, how did you start attending Mangalati every day? Like, at some point, it's a matter of discipline, right? It's so easy to not wake up in the morning, especially like when it's snowing, when it's cold. So it's a matter of discipline like that.
And one last thing,
Yeah.
sorry, just one last. Um, for different people, the line between needs and want may vary.
Right.
For some sannyasi, it might be needs might be really less, and
Mm-hmm.
I mean they don't have a lot of
There they
wants,
are.
but still.
Right.
And then for other people, the wants might be on the right place. For some people, the needs might be more.
Mhm.
However, it's not actually needed.
Right.
For
Right.
example, I'll just give you an example. I saw a really nice lens for a camera, and then I was like, Prabhu, this is needed. If we have this camera, we can
Mhm.
shoot a really nice picture of
The details,
temple
right.
and then this whole video. But at the same time, we have one camera.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody suggested me, Prabhu, it's not a need now, but it's a want.
Right.
So yeah, how do people ensure that this is a need, this is a want?
Right. We cover that in great detail in the workshop, but just to briefly answer that, see, when, like, there's a principle, just like the 50, 30, 20 principle, there's a principle that if you feel like you want to buy something, you just have to wait for 48 hours. If you wait for 48 hours and still if you feel that you really want it, right, you really want it, then you can actually think. Otherwise, usually impulsive decisions are like that. We see something nice, we feel, oh, I need this. But then if we wait for 48 hours, typically in those 48 hours, we realize that, okay, we can manage without it for now, and, let's not spend that off. So that's one of the principle, like one of the strategies I would say, wherein, just wait for 48 hours or 36 hours, just wait, just wait for some time. You will automatically, think about it, and it will get revealed that whether you really need it or you really, it's just a want. Yeah, most welcome. I think there's a question there.
Hare Krishna.
Hi, Krishna.
My question is that buying a own house or staying in a rental house, which one is better and what's your opinion?
So see, purely from a personal finance matter, you need to do the calculations, right? Like for example, in the area where you're looking to buy a house, what is the capital appreciation that happens? Typically, like, there's a concept called as opportunity cost. So for example, if, like if I'm paying rent, then every month I'm paying that rent, but I'm not going to get any asset at the end of the life, right? Even if I pay rent for say 40 years, I'm not going to get anything. But on the other hand, if I save that money in some investment option like a mutual fund or anything that will give me say 10%, 12% return, then at the end of 40 years, how much will that value actually accumulate to? Now I cannot really tell you what, because that depends on person to person. Some people, they would just say we'll just buy gold and keep. Some people want to buy stocks. Some people say no, stocks are too riskier, we'll just buy something which gives me a fixed return. So that can be whatever option you are comfortable. So you can just calculate. Suppose if you're paying a rent of let's say $4,000 a month. So at the end of say 10 years or 20 years, what will that value accumulate to if you wouldn't have paid rent, but rather you would have invested it. So now what is the option? Because if you need a place to stay, right? So if you're not going to pay rent, then what are you going to do? You'll have to buy a house. Now if you don't have money to buy the house, you'll take a loan and you will buy the house. So then you need to work that out, because if you take a loan, you have to pay interest, right? Typically the way it works is that the EMI is structured in a way that you end up paying like double or much more than what you have borrowed. So you need to factor that. But with houses, like in most places, property prices do appreciate. So you can study like what is the general trend of property price appreciation in that area, then take a call. So there's no right or wrong answer. It actually depends on the area where you are staying, what is the trend of real estate or property prices over there, and you really need to sit with a calculator and calculate it. But then there is a second concept there. Now this is not a personal finance concept, but it is something which comes from years of experience of elders. It is said that for a person, first house is a necessity, right? So in that 50, 30, 20, it falls into 50%. So if you're buying a house also, and you're going to pay EMI, that can still come under your necessity part, because one house is something which I need to stay, like especially when we have a family. Second and subsequent houses, they are no more necessities. So they have to be evaluated like whether it's an asset or a liability, right? So for second houses, typically you can do all the calculations and you can do various things. But typically for the first house, people say that please go and buy it, because it's a necessity. But again, be very careful, because house is not something that can be bought like it's not like buying maybe pizza or something. So what happens is, do the research, because when we go to a new area, you might buy a house and then you realize that you don't want to live there, because there is something unfavorable in the environment, you just cannot live there, or you're not comfortable, or maybe your job gets shifted and the workplace is too far, so you have to travel every day, you don't want to travel. So all these practical aspects also have to be considered. Yeah, does that answer the question? I think you had a question or no? Anyone?
Very,
Yes.
it also seems like your company matters a lot too, because if friends,
Sorry, company?
your company, like people who you sit and hang out with,
Peer pressure.
I think it should be a part of the culture too, to talk about finances with friends and not just all kinds of rubbish that usually friends talk with each other. That probably helps Prabhu with, if your friends are into investments, maybe you would not be on Temu all the time. But Prabhu, I have a question about your brand too, Neetai, the name. Did you already mention
Yeah.
a little bit a brief about the story, how you came up with the name?
Okay, so it is inspired from our Guru Maharaj. So, like because Nitai is Nityananda Prabhu, and we wanted to have a name which is devotional, but at the same time it doesn't sound devotional for people, who are from the outside world. So it's an acronym. It is basically nurture, educate, empower, and then together in education. So because it's a education, or we are providing education to young adults and kids, so that's how we have got that name. Thank you. Okay, any other questions here? No? Okay.
Thank you so much, Mother, for giving us
Thank
such
you.
a wonderful knowledge. Let's have a big round for applause for Mother. So, if anybody has any personal question or if anybody needs this PDF, I personally need one. We can reach out to Mother, right? And now we'll be having Kirtan. So, yeah. Yes. So, dear Prabhus, we also will need a little help to put these chairs back so that we can quickly start up with the Kirtan. So, if you are happy to volunteer or if you feel inspired, please help us. Thank you. Hare Krishna.